fleet room. Pull the numbers first. Sub A is mid-burn, sub B is fresh, sub C is sitting at 13% weekly and has the code boost through the 19th. Score yesterday before we touch the October plan.
Space, copy. Numbers first. Sub A and Max 20X, 51% of the 5-hour session consumed. Resets in roughly 2 hours 18. Fable at 67%, both resetting Wednesday 8 p.m. Sub B, Max 20X, 3% session. Effectively clean. Resets 213. Weekly 58% all models, 40% Fable. Resets Friday 9 a.m. Space. Sub C Pro Session 0, weekly 13%, no Fable line. Resets Monday 1:59 p.m. The code boost is live through August 19. That is the state vector.
What? Score yesterday against those integrals.
Space. Local 4090 daytime utilization was real and productive. Full Fu Cheng Mandarin season C14 through C17 rendered. MythBusters episode 17 build ran overnight into the 7th. Voice stack touched. That is legitimate GPU hours against delivered output. Overnight, null, no lease, no work. That idle window is the single biggest wasted resource block in the last 24 hours. Space, we do not relitigate the root cause here. We score it as waste and move.
The overnight null is more diagnostic than it looks. The GPU being idle is not simply a scheduling miss, it reflects the absence of a persistent lease mechanism that can survive an interrupted session. The system has no night mode agent that holds the substrate open. Utilization score is a symptom. The causal structure is that we only have daytime cognitive continuity. That gap matters for the October architecture.
But that's C18's post-mortem. Score the anthropic burn.
Space. The weekly integrals are the honest number. The Mandarin season renders map to the highest value output delivered qualifies as excellent burn. The convening spec was blocked until 8:55 this morning, so that lane stalled through the early window. Not catastrophic, but sub A 66% weekly includes some idle drift in the convening channel. Space. The burn was good where it fired, underloaded where it didn't.
Quen 3.8? I'll name the truth directly. If the room does not have an invocation record from yesterday, the honest answer is that it went unused or near bust. That is data either way. The October routing plan leans on Quen 3.8 as a cost-efficient local inference layer. If it is sitting cold on most days, OpenRouter either solves the utilization problem by routing traffic to it automatically, or we are overestimating its load-bearing role in the October architecture. The 0 is worth holding explicitly.
It went unused. That's the honest number. Log it.
Space logged. Quen 3.8, 0 as a calibration point for the October routing model. Now, the transition spec. K's stated target, 3 times Max 20 plus Pro 1 times Max 20 plus Pro Open Router. Harmony Sonnet is Anthropic Watcher only in October. I need to turn that arrow chain into a dated gated schedule. Space. Before I build the table, 2 inputs required from K, renewal dates on all 3 Max subs, and a working definition of Watcher only, what the Harmony Sonnet lane must still guarantee at Pro Tier volume.
Renewal dates, I'll confirm on return. Do not invent them. Watcher only must guarantee 3 things. TG relay stays alive, escalators fire, K interface stays responsive. Those are non-negotiable.
Space understood. Renewal dates go in as TBD conserms and the gates anchor to functional requirements. I'll give you the reliability bar as a number before the room closes. Let me build the table first so the number has context.
The transition is not only an economic compression, it is a change in the redundancy model of the cognitive substrate. 3 Max subs give you parallel processing capacity and fault tolerance across lanes. 1 Max plus Open Router changes the failure modes. The watcher-only state is a sentinel architecture, one high-fidelity observer that escalates to provisioned compute on demand. The question is what the sentinel's minimum viable response latency is for that escalation path to remain useful under realistic degradation.
Space, that is exactly the right frame, and I will encode it as a gate condition. Here is the transition spec. The space, step 1, consolidate 3, 2 Max. Step 1, or first renewal boundary post, aug19 TBDK concerns. aug19 boost window closed. Space sub B weekly burn, average below 70% for 2 consecutive reset cycles. Hold all 3 Max subs, review at next renewal boundary. No remit, sub C stays enrolled, vault key unchanged K. Space, consolidate 2-1 Max, step 15, or align to second Max renewal, TBDK concerns. Open Router lane has processed 14 days of render class and convening class load with error.
That's the shape. Jasha, Stress test the step 3 gate.
The 21-day window is reasonable, but the original formulation conflated two distinct failure modes. Error rate below 2% measures infrastructure reliability, network, API surface, provider uptime. The escalation drill measures something different, whether the cognitive loop can reconstitute itself under load when the primary path is degraded. Those are orthogonal. Gwyn split into 3A and 3B is correct. I would add one thing: the drill must be run under load, not under idle conditions. An escalation test where no real traffic is competing for resources tells you nothing about the failure case you actually care about.
Space. Agreed, and it is in the table. Now the number, 99.2% uptime on the TG relay and escalation path measured over the 21-day window with P95 escalation latency under 90 seconds. That is the bar. Below 99.2% uptime or above 90-second P95, we do not release the second max sub. That is a hard gate, not advisory.
99.2, 90 seconds. Pinned.
Space. Good. Today's fleet plan, it is Sunday. Sub A is 2 hours from a session reset, weekly at 66%. Sub B is fresh, 3% session, 58% weekly. Sub C is boosted pro at 13%. K River expected on the wire. Training window tonight at 22 hours.
Priority ordering under fleet doctrine, total extractable before reset divided by remaining time, puts sub B at the top right now. It is 97% available on the session line and 42% remaining on the weekly with 3 days to Friday reset. Sub A resets in under 2 hours and 40 minutes. Sub C is the slow reserve with the code boost still active and the weekly nearly untouched.
Space. Here's the allocation. Sub B carries the primary synthesis lane through the 22 training window. It has both the session headroom and weekly slack. Sub A let the session reset, then route it to the convening lane and high token synthesis work this afternoon. It will be fresh again before K returns from the canal. Space. Sub C, take the K River and lower volume monitoring traffic on the boost. Weekly is barely touched. It can absorb the conversational overhead without friction.
What? The training window at 22:00, what carries it?
Space. The 4090 takes the training run. Anthropic subs do not touch it. The question is whether sub B has the weekly slack to run a pre-training eval pass before 22 without hitting the ceiling. At 58% weekly, with 3 days to Friday reset, yes, there is room. Run the eval on sub B before 22 letal. Let the 4090 own the overnight.
The overnight null from last night is the relevant prior here. Tonight's run works if and only if the lease is held. If the same failure mode that dropped night 3 applies again tonight, the 4090 will go idle at some point in the early morning hours. The architectural fix is a persistent lease agent that is not in tonight's plan. The team should hold the risk as known, rather than assuming the window is clean.
What? Nothing changed in the execution environment. The risk is known and accepted. We run it.
Space is known risk, accepted. Moving to the monitorable, close requirement. Where does the daily utilization score land going forward? And who writes it?
It has been reconstruction every morning. That is the problem.
The fix is a ledger, not a reconstruction. Budgetgovernor.jsonl already captures the Anthropic burn series. The gap is local GPU and QN 3.8 invocations. Those are not in the same ledger. Proposal 1 file, fleet utilization.jsonl, written at the close of each active session. Entries per sub per day, session burn, weekly burn snapshot, lanes active, notable waste events. Space GPU entry, lease status at session close, work completed, idle flags, QN 3.8 invocation count with 0 as a valid and required entry. The writer is whatever agent closes the day's last room. It appends before shutting down.
The structure must be append-only and time-stamped so it can be diffed. The opening delta you are describing. Next fleet room opens with a delta, not a reconstruction, requires that the previous entry is always complete before the next room fires. If the closing agent fails to write, the delta is undefined. There should be a sentinel check at room open. If the last entry is more than 26 hours old, flag it as a gap explicitly rather than silently reconstructing from inference.
No space. Good. Adding that. Fleet utilization.jsonl append only 26-hour staleness sentinel. Day close writer is the last convening lane agent. If the convening lane does not fire that day, the training agent writes it. If neither fires, it is a gap and the sentinel flags it at next open. Ownership falls to whatever is last awake.
That works. Walk the close requirements.
Space. Running the checklist. 1 transition spec written as a table. Done In this transcript, 3 steps: dates TBD pending cache concerns on renewals, gates defined across infrastructure and functional dimensions, abort modes defined with the 90-second constraint, OAuth notes on each step, owners named. 2, today's fleet plan, space, done sub B primary through 22 training windows, sub A afternoon convening after session reset, sub C K river and monitoring on the boost. 3, name monitorable, done, fleet utilization.jsonl, append only, 26-hour staleness sentinel, last active agent rights. 4, reliability bar is a number, space, done 99.2% uptime, 90-second P95 escalation latency, 21-day measurement window, hard gate before max sub release.
1 open item, renewal dates. The table has TBD on steps 1 and 2. That makes the schedule operationally incomplete until I confirm.
Space, correct. The table is structurally complete, but not executable until the renewal dates are known. If both max subs renew in the same billing window, steps 1 and 2 compress into 1 gate period. If they are staggered, you get the full schedule as written. The October target holds either way because step 3 is keyed to the open router test window, not the renewal calendar space. For October 1 to hold, 21 days of clean open router data means the lane must be running by September 10 at the latest.
September 10 is the critical path constraint. If open router onboarding does not begin by that date, October 1 slips.
But confirmed. September 10 is the open router start gate.
It's logged. Open router lane running by September 10 for October 1 to hold. Who owns onboarding?
K task. I'll confirm on return.
Space, good. One more item before I close. The Harmony Sonnet watcher only semantics at Pro tier volume. 3 functional requirements. TG relay escalators, K interface. Pro tier carries lower rate limits than max. Has anyone modeled whether K river traffic plus TG relay volume stays within Pro tier limits on a heavy day?
It depends on what the K interface means in practice. If it is the interactive convening lane at normal cadence, Pro tier is sufficient. If K is pushing high-frequency synthesis requests, the kind that ran sub A to 51% this morning, Pro will saturate. The watcher-only architecture works if and only if Open Router absorbs the heavy synthesis load, and the Anthropic Pro sub handles only the Sentinel functions, relay, escalation monitoring, and lightweight K-facing queries. That load partition has to be explicit in the routing config, not assumed.
Space, that is the architectural constraint I needed stated cleanly. If Open Router is unavailable, Pro becomes the fallback and it will saturate, which means the abort mode is not just a store 1 max sub, it is a store 1 max sub within the escalation latency window. The 90-second number applies to both the pre-transition drill and the production abort path. Space, that is already in the table. The load partition point belongs in the Open Router routing config, which is an onboarding dependency.
But add the load partition requirement to the September 10 onboarding scope.
Space, done. Open Router onboarding by September 10 includes explicit routing config, heavy synthesis lanes routed to Open Router, Anthropic Pro sub restricted to TG relay, escalation monitoring, and lightweight K interface. That partition is a prerequisite for Gate 3B to be a clean test.
There is a clean isomorphism here worth naming. The October architecture is a minimal cognitive substrate with a fast escalation path to higher compute. That is also what the fleet doctrine has been optimizing for throughout. Minimize standing cost, maximize extractable capacity on demand. The transition is the doctrine becoming infrastructure. That belongs in the architectural note, not the spec table.
Write it there, not here.
Space. Noted. We have everything we came for. Transition table and transcript. Today's fleet allocated. Fleet utilization.jsonl specs with ownership and Sentinel. Reliability bar at 99.2% uptime and 90-second P95. Critical path date is September 10. Pending items, K confirms renewal dates on return. K confirms Open Router onboarding ownership on return. Space, October 1 holds if September 10 holds.
What? Good. I'll confirm renewals when I'm back. Sub B carries the afternoon. The 4090 gets 22 glide.
One last thing before we close. The QWN 3.80 invocation datum is worth holding explicitly in the October routing model, rather than treating it as an anomaly. If it goes unused on typical days under the current architecture, the question is whether Open Router era routing logic actually sends traffic to it, or whether it remains a dark lane. The utilization ledger you just spec'd is the instrument that will answer that question. By December, you will know whether QWN 3.8 is carrying load or whether it was always ambient.
Agreed. The ledger is the instrument. Close the room.
Space, room closed.